With cyber attacks on the rise, protecting your data security is more important than ever. So why is Congress considering a bill that puts your credit card data at greater risk of being hacked and exposed to foreign networks? The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill shifts billions in consumer spending to less secure payment networks, all so that corporate megastores can make bigger profits. Don't let Durbin-Marshall steal your data. Visit electronicpaymentscoalition.org and tell your senators to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
The specific legislative term you would use for this is a shit show.
It's time once again for King of the Hill.
My advice to women, if you see some other woman who's succeeding and like shining or whatever, go after her.
Yeah,
don't let her do that. She'll probably try to take your man. Don't let her get away with it.
The people who consume their product are like liberal wine moms on the coast who are white. And they do all of this virtue signaling, talking about DEI and critical race theory and trying to attract minority viewers. And nobody's buying their bullshit.
You won't be surprised, fellas, to find out what kind of monkey we're dealing with.
Macaque.
Yeah. Macaque's dangerous.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. Fellas, a little different look and feel of what we've got going on to begin with, huh?
High energy.
Some production
We get
value.
better by the day.
Well, we're constantly evolving and getting better.
We are.
You know?
We are.
We're innovators.
We're innovators. But boy, did we have a good time with Megyn Kelly yesterday. Huh?
Yeah, terrific episode.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
She got a little dirty.
She got real dirty on us.
Yeah, especially with the tube and stuff.
I think she done it deliberate.
No question.
She does do it deliberate to us.
No,
Yeah.
she wants to see the reactions.
Well, and then she accused all of us of being porn subscribers.
right.
It's incredible.
Just to see what kind of reaction she would get out
Wants
of
to
us.
berate us on.
It's
Well,
one of my favorite things.
I love it. I like getting hazed.
I do too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like part of who we are, but
Yeah.
that's a part of it.
Yeah.
For sure. I loved it. But I also loved how we sort of went through dirty talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into like some serious, we were doing like constitutional law at
Yeah.
one point.
Legal
Yeah.
analysis. It turns out I am basically,
Justice Alito.
Yeah.
I'm Justice Alito.
Yeah. Yeah. And only Megyn can pull that out of you.
Yeah.
No question about it. So anyway, big thanks to Megyn Kelly and her show yesterday. That was fantastic. We have a very, very big one on top. I know that typically what Wolf likes is the meat, but I have to tell you who our guests are.
Mm-hmm.
We have got the number one recruit for this year's Senate campaign, Tim Sheehy, of the great state of Montana, in the House with us today. And that's not enough.
Nope.
We decided to do even more. So, I mean, we're going to give you... This is going to be a hell of a show. We also have Jesse Waters. Fox News' Jesse Waters. So, we'll screw around a little bit, and you're going to get some stuff out of us, and we're going to talk a little bit of serious news, but you're going to get two interviews that, frankly, you're not going to hear anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, hell of a lineup.
So, good stuff. Look, D.C. There's a real reason why you don't pay a lot of attention of what's going on around here, because it seems like it is not great, Bob. Not great. They have had this ongoing discussion about foreign aid.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, what we're talking about is support for Israel, support for Ukraine, Taiwan vis-a-vis China, in a package that passed the United States Senate with 70 votes back in February. And it has been a topic of discussion ever since. Huge chasms within the House Republican Conference. It's basically split on at least the Ukraine component of this. There's some dissent, I think small, very like 1, 2, maybe 3 on the Israel component. But the Israel component has huge problems on the Democratic side, as we've talked about, because as we know, Hamas is a constituency of the Democratic Party. So they've been trying to figure out how to deal with all of that. But the backdrop of it is the deal that McCarthy made in becoming Speaker was to allow for a motion to vacate the chair, which ultimately did him in last October over just hilariously minute, completely ridiculous things. But it hangs like a sword of Damocles over anyone else who has that job. And in order to be a leader of the House or the Senate, you got to make decisions that are in the best interest of the country that don't have typical constituencies that can be united entirely. You're always going to have, at best, 20% of your conference pretty upset about things that you need to do.
Yeah. I'm not a parliamentarian, but I believe the specific legislative term you would use for this is a shit show.
I think that's right. I think that's
Robert's
right.
Rules of Order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Americans for Prosperity has done it again. You're going to love this. Know how Biden's been running around the country bragging about Bidenomics? And the media's doing stories on how the president has embraced the term? Well, guess what? Americans for Prosperity just bought the Bidenomics.com domain name. I can't believe the White House didn't get this first. This would be like Pepsi buying Coca-Cola.com. It's hilarious. Bidenomics.com sets the record straight on the failures of Joe Biden's economy, his horrible record on cost of living, wages, debt, deficits, energy, and more. I've been to the site. I can tell you, it's not what Joe Biden wants Americans to see. AFP takes Biden's own words and compares them to the reality of everyday Americans. It's packed with facts and stories that prove Bidenomics is a costly failure. Americans for Prosperity deserves a lot of credit for this coup. Visit Bidenomics.com soon, the website Joe Biden doesn't want you to see.
Yeah, for those of us who got the initial legislative briefing from Marty Gold, I believe that was right up on top. It was like the shit show component to what is now the House of Representatives. So they've been trying to figure all this out. Recall in March they had to do the funding deal, which was quite contentious. Marjorie Taylor Greene put up a motion to vacate on Johnson. Recall she was with McCarthy against Gates and co. against that sort of motion to vacate. My point is that everything has a constituency to vacate the chair, regardless of what it is that you're doing. Now, this is a contentious fight in that anything in the foreign funding era, I don't care how big of a fan you are or how much you understand or how complex it is, it's a tough sell with the American public, particularly in a bad economy, particularly at a time where you have no faith or trust in a Biden administration to actually execute upon what you're funding. And so this has been a big contentious deal. It's now come back up, and Johnson rolled out a plan to deal with all of these funding mechanisms, all of these places individually that they would wrap up and then send over to the Senate, where it already enjoys, pretty significant bipartisan support. Of course, that triggered the motion to vacate and everything else, and here we are. It turns out in the Rules Committee yesterday, they killed it, which is, if you're in the House, and just for those of you listeners who sort of don't understand or don't take the time to actually concern yourself, which I understand, about how this works is when you're in the majority, typically how it's worked for 100 years is your majority comes to a consensus on something. You get it to a Rules Committee. The Rules Committee passes it out mostly on a partisan basis, sends it to the floor, and you pass it. What's happened in recent years is you can't find consensus within your own party on the Republican side. Democrats have no problem with this. So they've killed Johnson's idea, and now he's going to do it on something called suspension, which means you need 2/3 of the body in order to pass it. As we're taping this, we don't know whether that's successful or not, but it underscores this larger debate about whether or not the United States has a role to play in defending Israel from Hamas, now Iran, Hezbollah and Hamas as sort of attachés of Iran, or not. And I think we probably have differing opinions here on this panel. Smug, what's your take on all of this?
To me, I think there's a lot of pent-up frustration among the American people of almost like, why are we securing every border but our own? It's difficult to try to focus on what is our role in the world. How do we support our allies when we've got an open border, straight up, just an open border, And the news cycle that we see is constantly full of, you've gotten an illegal alien who's murdered somebody, who's robbed somebody. Cities, you visit New York, it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. So many problems here domestically, especially tied specifically to the border, that I think a lot of people are rightly frustrated of being like, well, it's not like we don't have a major problem to tackle here that is a priority and that isn't being addressed, and that, we have a president who's been lying to the American public, being like, oh, well, it's Republicans who aren't letting me do it, and then who says, well, I might have to take an executive action, which is essentially going back on repealing all the executive orders that President Trump had in place to secure the border, and an open admission that he could have had the border secure this whole time. But I think that frustration is what's being
cascading into everything else. Dunks?
I think it's a very reasonable frustration if you're an average voter and you're thinking, well, heck, why do we got to be doing all this stuff in Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan if the very obvious problem at our southern border is not being solved by Joe Biden? And I guess, what I worry about is the trap of we can't do X because Y is happening. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, Joe Biden doing wrong things shouldn't stop us from doing right things.
Yeah.
Just because we can't get him to agree to secure the border doesn't mean we should also decide we're going to throw up our hands and
it underscores
not do other things.
The importance of elections.
Well, yeah.
And my view of the border thing is, I think at this point, after we've gone through 3.5, we're closing in on 4 years with him not doing a damn thing and reversing all of the progress that we've made. If you're concerned about border, if you're concerned about illegal immigration, if you're concerned about fentanyl and human trafficking and everything else, you only have one option at this point. It's vote hard and vote a lot, and vote, get all your neighbors to vote, and try to change an administration. Yeah, because damn well the Biden administration is not going to do anything about it.
I mean, I think we should be less focused on a motion to vacate Speaker Johnson and more concerned about vacating Joe Biden in November.
Right.
It
seems like from our standpoint, that's the one thing I think we all probably agree on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that has to be front of mind. That has to be the thing that we are most focused on, because Democrats controlling the White House and the Senate essentially makes it so we can't get anything that we want.
Yeah.
That's
we're certainly not going to get 100% of what we want. That's just a reality of divided government. We can change all that in November.
So you've got, with retirements and a slim majority to begin with, you're dealing with no margin for error, like 1 seat, 2 seat, depending on attendance on a day-to-day basis. And almost everything that comes up of any kind of significance has constituencies within the party that go two ways. And what you've done in this situation by having the motion to vacate literally able to be called at any point by any one member of a massive conference is, if they disagree with what you're doing, they can threaten it, and you may not, depending on attendance, survive the vote. Mm-hmm. So it's not about making a tough call. It's just can you do anything?
Yeah.
And in this case, you've got, the libertarian side of the Republican Party doesn't feel like there is a role to play from an American standpoint in terms of American taxpayer dollars going to anything outside of these borders. Legitimate point of view. And for those who have been consistent on it, I commend it. It's a point of view. I disagree with it, but it's a point of view. And what they've done is use this as an opportunity to try to stop everything from going, because they ultimately, like I said, are holding a sword of Damocles over the head of Speaker Johnson. Mm-hmm. Right, Smash?
Yeah, it's true. There are a lot of arguments on each side of this, but my take is that our border is such a mess that they need to use every chance they can come up with to reduce the flow at the border. I don't think that we should have to wait until Donald Trump is sworn in as president of the United States to reduce the flow. And if what Republicans get in return from the Biden administration is not perfect, okay, well, it's not going to be perfect. But if we can reduce the flow... But
hasn't that ship sailed? That ship sailed.
I don't know that it sailed. I mean, don't you think...
I don't think that discussion is even in the realm of possibility.
If Republicans could stick together in the House and stick together in the Senate and reduce the flow of military-age men from Senegal by 1 platoon coming over the Mexican border, that's a victory. We don't have to stop all of them. We do need to stop all of them. We can't expect Democrats to stop all of them. we need to try to get them to stop something, because at some point it's all going to come to a head.
It's a very practical
We have terrorists
view.
in this country, and we have
Yeah,
to
but
stop
It's
it.
a very practical view, but after 20 years of doing this, I can tell you anytime immigrations come up, there will be a massive constituency against anything less than perfect.
Just
I don't-
look at what happened 3 months ago with the Langford
Yeah,
bill.
I mean,
Again,
dead on arrival, nobody even read it.
Imperfect legislation, and it's too seductive for a few members on our side to stand up and, declare.
I think that's why I say the immigration thing is a
Perfect,
dead letter.
the enemy of-
like you
of
can
good.
make it a discussion point, which
Right.
I understand in the context that Smug brought it up, and I totally identify with. I understand why that is a primary motivation for people being against anything else. I get that. But to the point that you made, Duncan, like, okay, we know that's a problem. We're dealing with that, and it's going to be a seminal, if not the number one issue in the presidential election that's coming up in 6-7 months. How do you just not do anything? And the thing that I made this argument on Fox News Sunday at one point, and I don't know if anybody's listening or not, but if I'm the Trump administration, I understand that they have hard views about all of these issues. But if I'm the Trump campaign and you think your guy is going to be president of the United States, which I think is a better than coin flip right now, if you think that is going to happen, the last thing in the world that you want is the world to deteriorate to a point of a bunch of really bad decisions. You can make a decision once you're president and you're executing it that you have faith and confidence in from where it is currently. If Israel is overrun by Iran and Putin rolls through Ukraine, your decision-making tree gets so much shorter that there's not a lot of good options. There's just not.
Yeah.
So, like, embracing a shitty status quo, if you're thinking about governing at all, I'm not talking about like what the presidential politics looks like, which I think, as you pointed out, would be hugely on the side of where Trump and co are now. It's sort of against everything that doesn't fix the border. I would be very concerned about what the packet looks like that lands on my desk day one of a world that is basically collapsed and all now reliant on whatever China ends up doing because they know they can't count on America to support them. Like, that concerns me. I would be very concerned. And that's the reality. Like, anybody who's like, oh, just, don't send tax dollars. There's two things that establish American dominance in this world: our money in our markets and our threat of force. Two things. And if you want to establish and keep American dominance, you have those two buckets to pull from. I'm not sure that anybody in this country is very comfortable with bucket two, the threat of force. Like, I don't think anybody wants to go into World War III in the Middle East at now or anytime. I'm pretty sure that nobody wants to send American troops to Ukraine. I'm pretty sure that all of those things are pretty much off the table. So bucket one is your only option unless you are willing to just recede from the world stage. And I got to tell you, your way of life in this country is entirely dictated by the fact that most of this world is relying upon the United States and has been for about 50 years. And that is a very real threat.
I could not agree with you more about bucket number two, demonstrating force, the threat of force and American force. But nothing undercuts that more than when people watch video of 18 and 20-year-old men just walking across our border. And everybody in the world knows that these people are not coming in to get a job at Home Depot.
But
They're
I don't
coming
think
in to
anybody
cause us problems.
was there anyone in the world that disagrees with what you're saying right now?
No, not at all.
But that's not a point of-
What I'm saying is that if we want to demonstrate that we are strong, it starts at our border. It starts at stopping these people from coming in. I'm not saying we shouldn't allow the Ukrainians and help the Ukrainians fight the Russians. Our allies fighting our enemies, great. I'm just saying that we have got to take the border seriously in this country, and if we don't, we're already going to pay a price. It's just a matter of how big of a price we're going to pay.
Yeah.
If Trump does not win, think about what happens in the next 4 years. They keep coming. Biden keeps letting them say "death to America" on our streets.
Yeah.
These are people that are coming in. They want to kill us, and they're going to do it.
I saw a headline this morning that a senior advisor to Senator Catherine Cortez Masto died in a car crash with an illegal immigrant in Nevada at like 4:30 in the morning.
Jesus.
And the guy had been caught and detained and released into the country.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show.
It's ridiculous, and everybody it felt good to dunk on Langford, and Langford didn't have the perfect idea, and I like, who cares if it was the perfect idea? It's what you could get when a Democrat's there. It's doing something about the border, and when Trump comes to office, he's going to close it all down, or at least that's what he said.
Listen, I agree with everything you just said. I just don't think that any of that is in the realm of possibilities. I think they have to deal with this thing the way that they can deal with it, and we settle the border thing politically, because we've already tried a million different ways, and the only way the Biden administration is going to do anything or sign anything is to respond to a political problem that they think that they're half solving, because they don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't care. I mean, obviously, 3.5 years, they don't give a shit.
They don't care. No, they want it to happen.
Yeah, they want it to happen.
How could you conclude anything else?
So I guess the larger question is, like, what does the world look like if you don't do what it is that they're trying to do? And I understand the objections to it, but if they walk away from this situation, Speaker Johnson's not going to get stronger. There is a constituency on the other side.
Right.
You know, the 13 libertarians that they have right now who are like rattling sabers and saying they're going to vacate the chair. Wait until you don't do it. Then you're going to have about 40 defense and foreign policy hawks who are thinking the same thing on the other side. And like, if there's one message out of all of this, you got to get something done one way or another on this. And then whoever the speaker, if it's Johnson, you need to figure out how to convince the conference that if you have a majority, get rid of this vacate bullshit, because you can't govern. You literally can't. I don't care if the majority is it's 1 now. I don't care if it's 20. Mm-hmm. Same principle applies. If you have to vote every 3 months, every time you have to actually do something in this country to keep your job, like, dude,
got to get rid of it.
It's the reason the framers put 2-year terms in, and 6-year terms in the Senate.
Right.
It's because you had to make some decisions that were maybe unpopular at the time, but in the best interest of your country. And it is a real tough thing to watch. Anyway, that's our serious shit. We're done with that.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, we're done. We're done with all.
Can we have some fun? Gosh.
We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna play King of the Hill. It returns.
Yes.
You'll recall that at the end of Hack Madness, we returned to King of the Hill.
Because it's unfair bias. If we have King of the Hill contestants on and we're highlighting their horrible takes while they're also competing, we don't want to put our thumbs on the scale. So, but now that Hack Madness is over and Keith Olbermann was crowned the winner for this year, we're back to King of the Hill.
Exactly. And we've got some very good variety for you after that, and 2 amazing guests. So with all that, we'll get back to you right after this.
Ruthless is sponsored by BetterHelp. We're all looking for ways to improve, especially with limited time in this chaotic world. Work demands, kids' activities, it all adds up. It helps to have someone to talk to about your goals. Maybe you're looking to manage stress or figure out what you can do better to focus at work. Talking through it gives you clarity and can help you keep focused on what really matters. If you're looking to be the best version of yourself, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp offers entirely online therapy designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your busy schedule. You simply fill out a brief questionnaire and you're matched to a licensed therapist. Once you're matched to a therapist, they will reach out and ask you a few questions to get to know you better. You can book a live session right in-app. From there, you can talk to your therapist by live chat, phone, or video call. It's that easy. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/Ruthless today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ruthless.
So King of the Hill, what we like to do when we come back to this game after a month-long hiatus is just briefly explain how it is that it came to be. We started with King of the Hill because when we started this show, there were a whole bunch of quote-unquote conservatives. Mm-hmm. People who've made a living in politics, representing that they were conservatives or Republicans. They're operatives, they're journalists, but they're conservative in nature. And Trump broke their brain
Yeah.
so significantly that they became psychopaths.
Yeah.
And not just like left of center. I mean, like crazy people.
No, I mean, they are Joe Biden voters.
They are Joe Biden voters. I mean, say enough. That says
Yeah.
enough. So King of the Hill is a matchup that we've played here now for how many games have we played, fellas?
Over 100 now.
It's over 100?
Yeah.
Over 100 games of this where we match up a week of their tweets head to head, and we all pick or two of us pick a competitor. The other serves as judge and bailiff.
Bailiff. And I'm bailiff today, and I'm going to be a real wild card.
Well, you run a hard court.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a shrinking violet here either, Michael. I just want you to know that.
It's good.
So our competitors are today whom? And I believe you're the defending champion.
I am.
Comfortably.
So I'm going to show up with Joe Walsh, defending champion.
Nice.
I got Jen Rubin.
Oh,
Brainworms herself.
brainworms herself.
Yep.
So, all right, a huge matchup. I think we need to go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time once again for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of the Washington Post, Jennifer Brainworms Rubin. And now, in the red corner, fighting from a Chicago suburb and current champion of the world, Smoking Joe Walsh.
It never gets old. Never gets old. All right, counselor, we always start with the champion. What do we have here today?
Well, we have some incredible takes from Joe Walsh. I want to start this off with Exhibit 10, please, for our YouTube subscribers. They can see it at home. So Val Venus, former WWE star, still WWE star, had a great take where Joe Walsh, essentially he's saying that, Joe Walsh, you constantly bitch and moan about Trump. If you think your ideas are so good, why don't you try running? And Joe Walsh replies, "Hi, Val Venus. I tried to beat Trump in 2020, but got spanked. The ideas I was offering, freedom, honesty, democracy, and the rule of law, are ideas Republicans don't want. They want authoritarianism. I concede it's Trump's party. He's giving them what they want. Thanks." He's saying, yes, you're right. No one wants my ideas. And I got spanked. And it's incredible because Joe Walsh essentially is trying to peddle himself as like, hey, I have the answers. I know what the people want. And then right here, he's willing to admit, well, I got spanked. No one voted for me. I have bad takes.
He stood for democracy, and then he was defeated by democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, which standing and then being defeated by that conflict.
Yeah.
That was the icing on the cake, as he was like, due to authoritarianism, I lost.
I lost the Democratic election.
Do we ever get a total on how many votes? If that guy received more than 5,000 votes, it's an indictment in the mental health of our country.
I thought he dropped out, right?
He didn't actually obtain a vote.
No, I don't think so.
I think that's probably right. That seems right. Okay, that makes sense to me. Smash, what do we have from the Queen?
We're starting out with Exhibit number 9, please. In Exhibit number 9, she's commenting on an article about polling, and she says polls. She says they. She's referring to polls, and I just modify that just so that you know what she's talking about. They are worse than meaningless. Pervasive polling obsession winds up misinforming and freaking out voters while crowding out the essential aspects of a historic campaign. And then the NYT misrepresents its own polling data.
Oh, okay. All right. I have a first of all, when she's talking about misrepresenting its own polling data, is there any context to be gleaned from the headline? I will allow a headline to be read in what she's tweeting out if it's pertinent.
It is not. I mean, just in the integrity of counsel is important.
He didn't come prepared. He doesn't know what it says.
And what I'm telling you is that I
After
don't
didn't
think
do
it
his
fits.
homework.
I don't think it fits what you're asking.
It doesn't. So she doesn't provide any context into how the New York Times is misrepresenting its own polling.
She calls it the worst of mainstream media,
Do we have any
distorting the polls.
exhibits of her riding high on polls?
We do not.
He didn't do the homework. Wow.
Well, I'm going to, as much as I think Joe Walsh has had a milk toast opening round, I'm going to award it to him because I don't have any context to rule otherwise.
May I file an amicus brief here, just briefly?
What?
After the ruling?
No, in support of your decision.
I appreciate that.
Judge.
Yes.
I'm just here to support you.
Bailiff, I can not thank you enough. You're a man of great integrity.
I just wanted to inform our audience because the question was asked, is like, did Joe Walsh get any votes? He got 1.1% of the vote in Iowa in 2020.
That is additional context. I appreciate that. And he lives a scant, 60 miles from the Iowa border, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
My God.
Okay. All right. That is very good. Let's go to round 2, the Queen.
Okay, this is Exhibit 5, please. Jennifer Rubin. For the Jamie Dimons of the world, industry tightens consistently, be it in the 1930s Europe, or in present-day Hungary, or in General Augusto Pinochet's Chile, or Jair Bolsonaro's Brazil. Imagine they can cut deals with autocrats, or that persecution of disfavored groups will have no impact on the business environment. The economic and political upheaval an autocrat brings never fails to surprise those who insisted they could control them.
That is a hot.
And her take is on top of an article quoting Jamie Dimon talking about the politics of the day.
Wow.
Oh, my God, dude.
Jamie Dimon, fascist.
Jamie Dimon, fascist, is very, very hot stuff. Okay. All right, Smug, what do we got?
So this tweet from Joe Walsh, quote retweets. I'm not going to read the quote retweet, but it's fun to bring back a former punching bag of the program, Miles Taylor.
Oh, I love Miles
who,
Taylor.
When there was this story cycle, it was during the whole height of Russiagate of there is some insider who is unnamed and who's going to write a book and
Anonymous. Yeah.
anonymous, and everyone's like, oh, who could it be? It's got to be like a vice president, someone important. And
Halloweens and pandemics.
Yeah, when he doesn't wear masks, he was asked on, I believe it was Anderson Cooper, if he was anonymous.
He was like, the only time I wear masks is Halloweens and pandemics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I liked
that's the one.
I loved how he managed to turn a terrible joke, into also virtue signaling about how he always wears his mask during COVID.
I mean, just
just perfect.
Halloweens and pandemics.
So this clown has a tweet where he's like, in 2016, I helped lead the U.S. government response to Russia attacking and stealing the election, all this made up bullshit. And Joe Walsh quote retweets it, this terrible dude with terrible takes, and says,
Are we going to put it on the screen?
yeah,
There we go.
Exhibit 11. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Joe Walsh says, and remember, Putin again wants Trump to win. A take where right now we are seeing the world on fire because of Joe Biden. Whether it's Iran shooting rockets at Israel, whether it's the war that's going on after Putin invades Ukraine, because Joe Biden withdraws from Afghanistan in a total disaster, the entire world recognizes Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel. Literally.
Oh,
right?
man, this is super
So
tough.
Joe Walsh's take is that, yes, Putin's like, the way I can go into Ukraine is Trump. Oh, wait, I couldn't do shit when Trump was there.
I'd like to take the unprecedented step of consulting with the bailiff.
It's very thoughtful.
It seems to me that we're in a bit of a conundrum here in this court. It's either Jamie Dimon is a fascist, the likes of which were represented by Pinochet, Hitler, and what was the third?
She didn't mention Hitler.
Belisari.
It was just Pinochet.
Bolsonaro.
Well, no,
Bolsonaro.
No,
And to be honest, Pinochet was just
the
giving commies
1930s.
helicopter rides. Not really a bad dude.
Jeez. That's the hottest take right there.
You know?
Pinochet, not a bad guy.
He just wanted to give him helicopter rides, dude.
Amazing.
He's a commie.
What
How's the view from up here?
What a take. I love in the process of trying to win King of the Hill, he's now just indicted all of his character.
Not a bad dude.
No.
Hey, he knew what to do to the commies.
I mean, the only thing I would say in Smug's defense is communism is an ideology of violence. And I hate those people.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, but that's not what I'm ruling upon.
Okay.
Calling Jamie Dimon basically akin to 1930s German business leaders and people associated with Bolsonaro. And
A guy who
Pinochet.
donates to Democrats and was at one time floated to be Secretary of the Treasury for Barack Obama.
And I'd like to remind you that this is a conservative columnist for the Washington Post, so I feel like that tweet is what this game is all about.
In case we forgot.
Can I get one more look-see at the smug tweet? I think it was Exhibit 11. Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure I understand. The yellow finger does a lot for me, too.
It does.
The yellow finger does a lot for me,
It's
too.
so amazing.
Do you want counsel from your bailiff?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to hear your thoughts because I mean, this is one of those decisions that sets precedent here, and I want to make sure we get it right.
I think Jen Rubin has a muscle memory where she falls back on some specific tropes of hers. I think the Jamie Dimon take is it tills new ground, totally new ground for her. I think that is the measuring stick we need to use in a situation like this where the two are so good.
I think that's wise counsel.
Wow.
I'll also say this.
What is this rigged bullshit, bro? You're a bailiff.
At the beginning of
But it's
her
a
career-
Russiagate take, man. We've seen a million of those.
No. I'm not. That's not why
You
I'm
know?
ruling against this. I actually like the Walsh take much better than the first Walsh take, and the finger does a lot for
The
me.
emoji thing.
Emoji does a lot for me. But I will say I'm relying on my history of jurisprudence in this area. And Jen Rubin made her name writing for Commentary magazine before she was hired by the Washington Post as being an ardent defender of Israel. As a Jewish columnist,
Yeah.
she was an ardent defender of Israel. The idea that she can loop in German business acquiescence to Adolf Hitler with Jamie Dimon is enough for me.
Can I see that tweet?
I go.
I don't think there was any reference to Hitler in that tweet.
Yeah, it's 1930s. Germany.
1930s Europe.
Okay, I'm wrong. I was wrong.
So I, for that reason and that reason alone, I barely by an inch go with Rubin on this one.
Well, it's fine. I mean, I'm taking 2 on 1. I thought we had a bailiff, but
No, I wanted
guess he's on the side.
consultation.
It's fine.
I wanted consultation.
I'm still gonna win.
I opened the door.
Smug, I'm not against you, pal.
I'm still gonna win. 2 on 1 is fine.
Amazing. He's aggrieved.
Aggrieved.
All right, what do we got for round 3 Smugglesworth?
Could I get Exhibit 1, please? This is Joe Walsh, quote, retweeting someone calling him out. And Joe Walsh says, "Hey there, my friend. If I was driven by money, I'd still be a huge Trumper. When I supported Trump, I was making great money for the first time in my life. And then I threw it all away. Call me stupid. Call me a traitor, but don't call me a sellout for money. There hasn't been any." So this is funny on so many levels, right? Where first off, he's like, I'm broke because of Trump, essentially, right? And he's like, I threw all my money away. Call me stupid. I'll agree with that. That's a good point. Call him stupid, folks. But the best part is the insinuation that the way to make money is to support Trump, where no corporation will sponsor you. You look at a conservative media and you look at liberal media. Liberal media is like, today's show is brought to you by Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Bank of America, Lockheed Martin.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Okay, all right. I'm doing a little my own research while we take the take of the Queen.
Okay, so for the Queen here, we are going to use exhibit number. Hold on a sec.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. I got.
Counselor.
This is why it's good to watch on YouTube. You can see my reaction to him not doing his job.
Oh, I hate an underprepared court. And that was the decisive factor in round 1.
Counselor, do we need a continuance in this court? Or are you prepared to play?
Exhibit number 6, please.
Okay.
And she is tweeting about an opinion piece she wrote at the beginning of this week entitled "Abortion Bans Can Doom Autocrats, period. Look at Poland, period." Okay. Put differently, This is her tweet. Put differently, if you want to establish an authoritarian society, women must be relegated to the home and deprived of self-determination. Conversely, pro-democracy movements, such as the victorious one in Poland, benefit by appealing to women and promising to secure reproductive rights.
Somehow this became an abortion thing?
We always wondered who the Emily of Emily's list was, and I think we found her.
Wait. Can I get what again is the opinion? It's her own issue because she only tweets out her own things, right?
Routinely, she tweets a lot of her content is on Threads as opposed to Twitter. When she posts to Twitter, it's usually promoting her material from the Washington Post. And so the column she wrote at the beginning of the week is entitled, "Abortion Bans Can Doom Autocrats. Look at Poland." Because that's what most people opening
lukewarm
the newspaper,
and boring.
Most people opening the newspaper looking for
boring.
What happens when an autocrat.
So you're either an abortionist or you're anti-democracy, basically.
The piece was unreadable, Josh. The opinion piece was unreadable. The subject matter selected appeals to 1,500 or 1,600 people scattered around the country.
Okay, so in order to render this decision, I'd like to ask if the bailiff could do a quick bit of research while he's on his computer. It is my memory that Joe Walsh was defeated. He held exactly one term in Congress in 2010.
Yeah, I believe so. He came in the Tea Party wave in 2010.
And then it was defeated immediately.
Yeah.
And then can I get Smug's, I'll tell you why that's important to me. If I can get Smug's tweet back up one more time to have a look-see, I'd still be a huge Trumper. I'd still.
In Joe Walsh's defense, to provide a little more context, I do believe he lost his radio show once he announced against Trump in 2020. So there's a little truth to what he's saying.
That was because you can't be on
context.
you can't be on TV when you're a candidate.
But
that has nothing to do with Trump. That's choosing to run for office.
Right. But Smug is correct. I mean, like, the liberal dark money universe that pays these people to have opinions now far dwarfs anything that most of these people could make on their own.
How many people in the radio audience were wondering where the show went?
0.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he was an original supporter of Trump. So
he was.
That's not entirely wrong. Still be a huge Trumper.
Listen, you could call him stupid. He said it himself. Call him stupid.
It is funny that it's a huge cell phone.
It is a huge cell phone. It is a huge cell phone. And he's basically making himself exempt from the charge of that he's profiting off of his political position because he's chosen a political position that has bankrupted him.
Yeah. Like, no, sir, I'm not immoral. I just found a position with no constituency.
Yeah. He's like, no one wants my takes. That's why I got no career.
Jen Rubin is writing
a 700-word
You don't have to do it anymore. Of Mike Pence with the laser eyes looking over the women with the white hoods and the red capes.
I would point out, just to be fair, Ashbrook's
Mike Pence is not on the ticket.
Is, Jen Rubin had criticized Mitt Romney for flip-flopping on the issue of abortion. And
she was pro-life.
She questioned his pro-life
and
credentials.
That's why I went back to whether or not Joe Walsh was, in fact, a pro-Trump guy.
He was.
Which he was. So the flip, as he explained it, is clear. He is an idiot. There's no question about that. What she is a monster. And for that reason, I've ruled in favor of Ashbrook, Jen Rubin.
Rigged.
Wow.
Rigged and stolen.
The point of this game is a former conservative who is losing their mind
on Twitter. The point is
it's rigged.
Twitter. It's rigged.
I mean,
you have
Susan
rigged and stolen. Rigged and stolen.
This is an issue.
I am. It's rigged.
This is an issue that people have
folks.
complex feelings about. But
the swamp strikes back.
You cannot dig deep on the morality of being pro-choice or pro-life and then fucking switch entirely when your politics about political parties change.
Yeah.
You either believe what you
Right,
believe,
right.
or you don't believe it.
We-
and that is the essence of King of the Hill.
And what we witnessed in that third tweet is the morphing from Susan B. Anthony to Margaret Sanger. She is something completely different than she was 10 to 15 years ago.
I mean, look, it pained me. I'd like to have given Smug the victory on this, but I think he was just edged out.
I would like to obstruct an official proceeding to say I would have voted for Smug.
Yep. You should have.
I stand with you.
Oh,
and the
you're so.
Patriots.
Yeah, I can't wait for me to be judge on you. And I'm so sorry that I solicited your advice at any time. I think the Supreme Court, if they uphold it, you're going down, pal.
Good.
Wait, are you judge next time?
I don't know. Am I? I think so.
I think I'm judge next time.
I think I'm. I think you're.
I'm judge.
Well,
I'll
I
be
don't know.
judge.
We'll figure it out.
be
But that's
judge
King
that.
of the Hill. Welcome back to the King of the Hill, the variety program. We're going to get into a lunatic bunch of stuff here. Some variety and then some stuff that like involves politics. Left-wing dark money behemoth behind bail fund for free Palestine bridge blockers.
Jesus.
Somebody explain this to me. Hold on. Can we play one clip first? This is clip one, just to set the stage in case you hadn't seen all of this mess.
Yeah.
That's the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, for the folks on YouTube, this is, I mean, God, I'd be pissed off.
I mean, this is we're looking at the Golden Gate Bridge with, like, I don't know, 9 people, maybe 10. I don't think it's double digits. They're holding a big sign that says "Stop the World for Gaza," and they are blocking traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge. You saw this happen at the airport in Seattle, several other places
Chicago,
throughout this
O'Hare.
country. Never a massive movement by any stretch, but enough to actually ruin the lives of all of these commuters trying to get from here to there. Who knows if there was like hospital visits and things that were a part of this, and like doctor's appointments and planes to catch and whatever. These idiots are doing what they're doing. Anyway,
Average Americans do not matter to them. And
so you found this article. This is a Free Beacon article.
yeah, this is a Free Beacon article coming from Jessica Costaskew.
Okay.
And you fellas won't be surprised to hear that the bail of all of these arrested terrorist sympathizers is being covered by left-wing dark media or dark-wing
Left-wing
dark money groups.
Who would be surprised?
So wait. So
Right.
what do we know about the dark money groups?
So the Community Justice Exchange, which is a project of the Tide Center, which serves as a hub for a variety of left-wing groups such as Black Lives Matter, Arab Resource and Organizing Center, which tried to
The Arab Resource and Organizing Center.
which just
I
last
bet
year.
they're up to a lot of community
Let
good,
me
huh?
tell you what they did. Just last year, they tried to impede official action of a U.S. military ship.
Oh, interesting. You know,
Cool.
that's something that we should encourage here in this country.
And a reminder, the Tide Center, that dark money behemoth, which doles out all this money, the like center spoke of this network, gets their money from George Soros.
Wow.
It's a
course.
Soros-funded operation.
I'm shocked.
When are we just gonna? This guy needs to go to Gitmo.
So it gets even worse. So like, yes, they have like set aside the bail money for it, but when it comes to the actual charges that they're facing, well, the prosecutor was bought by the left-wing dark money
Yeah, no,
groups. Soros bought the prosecutor, and historically they just dropped the charges.
Wait. So the prosecutor in this particular case is a Soros prosecutor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're never going to face anything anyway.
Nope.
He's paying the bail.
Yeah.
He literally is like, I paid for your seat, and here's the check for the bail. We good?
He's got both sides of it.
Fellas, there's a little bit more. So one other thing that Jessica reported is that the Democrat Party's fundraising platform is also in on the action.
Really?
So Act Blue
Oh, boy.
collects 4% of every dollar these Hamas sympathizers are donating to bail out the terrorist cheerleading brethren.
So that's their constituency. It's also a moneymaker.
What an amazing thing. I mean, we have, I think, talked with absolute authority about how Hamas has a constituency within the Democratic Party, but then you also see this constellation of C4s that are in the media, that are in turnout, that are in registration, that are in all of these other facets of the Democratic Party that are funded exclusively by George Soros, not to mention the fact that he's actually funding and electing the prosecutors. Now you all see it come to action, and you ask yourself, do these guys actually believe in any of this shit.
It sounds like organized crime. Like,
Yeah.
What I don't understand is, like, how is this not like a RICO charge against this entire operation?
How
this
does it not?
network
How is
of
it not?
groups? I mean, you are funding people doing illegal activity, knowing they're going to do illegal activity, and then funding the prosecutors are going to let them out of prison. If that isn't a criminal organization, I don't know what is.
Hey, Jack Smith. Hey, Jack Smith. I've got a
He's-
great idea. You have focused a lot on crimes that aid and abet larger crimes. Seems to me we got one red-handed.
Yeah.
Red-handed. And it's not here. It's not like in a million other... I mean, remember the guy who drove the car through the parade?
Yeah.
That was let
In
out by a
Wisconsin.
Soros
Whatever.
prosecutor?
Yeah.
That's just, I still can't believe that.
Right? I mean, this happens time and time again. And to your point, that's exactly right. You don't fund these operations with an expectation that they're going to behave differently.
Right.
This is what their goal is. This is
You're
what-
getting what you paid for.
How is it that you can actually fund an operation where it has an intent on committing crimes?
Yeah.
They commit those crimes. You bail them out of those crimes. And then you're not somehow culpable for it. How does that happen? No, literally, how does that happen?
It's called the Democratic Party. Like when you see every elected official on the Democrat side taking photos with like Soros' son, these donors are their sugar daddies, and they just have to completely submit to them.
And they have ultimate power.
Yep.
They really do. And if it wasn't for Jessica Costaskew at the Free Beacon, we wouldn't know any of this.
It's good work on your pronunciation, by the way.
And finding that good find.
Yeah, that's very good. I want to play clip 2 before we get off of it. This is the police, what they had to endure.
Stop squeezing my hand and twisting it. Stop prying my fingers. Stop prying. Stop. Stop. Stop.
Let go of the
Stop. Stop. You're hurting me.
Let go of the rebar.
He's free. He's free.
He's free.
Take him out.
Do you need EMS?
Hold on. I need you to play the first few seconds of this clip again. Just load it up again.
Please.
Just load it up again. Let's hit the...
Stop squeezing my hand and twisting it.
And twisting it.
He's not even touching it for the folks who are. Like, there's no twisting or anything happening.
So
here.
a dude has put his hand, what appears to be like a cut in half barrel.
Yeah, so they got these barrels, they filled them with concrete, and they use rebar to like hold on to, and that's how they stop traffic.
So what they've done, so they put their hand inside of a concrete barrel that it's unmovable because it's filled with concrete, and then there's a piece of rebar in the middle of it that they hold on to, and they will not let go, despite the fact that they're like being pulled by police officers. So police officers actually have to cut the barrel in half, dispatch with the cement, and pry this man's fingers off of the rebar. I say cut his arm off at the elbow. Apply a quick tourniquet because I'm sensitive about those sort of things. I don't want the man losing his life, but he's learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah, I think what's most offensive about that entire thing isn't him whining like a little bitch. I think what's most offensive in that whole thing is you got like 6 police officers around trying to deal with him, and then at the end, someone's asking him if he needs EMS. And it's like, think of all the government services in our country that are being wasted on people who waste our time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I have
Performative.
no problem with people protesting. I have no problem with expressions of free speech. But like that's not what this is. You're literally just shutting down commerce in this country and wasting the resources of people who have better things to do, catching criminals. How about getting people to the hospital in a fucking ambulance? Instead, you're sitting, they have to sit there with you as you cry about your fingers being pried as you're shutting down all commerce across the Golden Gate Bridge. Fuck you.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely insane. With that, I want to go to our first interview, fellas. This is going to be Tim Sheehy, a whale of a guy. Please consider supporting him. I'm going to. I think most of us sitting here are going to after this interview, and you're going to love it. I want to welcome to the program a guy long anticipated, I would say, Michael.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for this guy. He is, if not the most significant recruit of the cycle, certainly amongst a one or two. I know everybody was working very, very hard to get his interest gauged for a United States Senate race to take on Jon Tester in the great state of Montana, a left-wing lunatic masquerading as something other than that. Tim Sheehy, welcome to the program.
Progrum, I like how you say that.
Yeah,
Like
well,
a
it's kind of our
country boy.
thing. Yeah, it's kind of our thing. It's kind of our thing. Listen, pal, you not only got into this race, you made it interesting pretty quickly. They're really afraid of you.
Yeah, they sure are. As we're seeing in the polls, we are now leading in the polls, and that scares Chuck Schumer and Jon Tester and the media establishment that is an arm of their organization, as we know. So, and the reason we're ahead is there's no secret sauce. It's just common sense. I mean, Americans look at what's happening to this country, and Republican, Democrat, we've gone beyond that. Like, it stopped mattering. People are saying, when did I become racist for wanting a secure border?
Yeah.
When did I become hate speech for saying that boys are boys and girls are girls? Right. When did I become a bad person for wanting cheap gas? When did I become a conspiracy theorist for saying that, hey, I'm a little worried about taking all these vaccines? I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, can I ask questions before I inject this into my body?
Yeah.
They're getting frustrated saying, well, why am I bad for saying cops are good, criminals are bad? Like these basic things that
we used to agree on.
Common sense.
Right.
And I think, that's what when I'm out in the stump around Montana, I'm not talking about, Republican policy initiatives. I'm not talking about, conservative values. I'm just talking about common sense. And I think that's resonating. People are saying, listen, we are a conservative state. Yes, we have conservative values, but like it almost is beyond that now.
Yeah,
and they're tired
no
of frankly, tired of people pissing down their back and tell them it's raining. Now they're like, hey, right. I can smell it. That's not rain. So stop telling me it is.
Well, the greatest ally that Democrat senators have had over the years in states similarly situated to yours is trying to choose the Republican candidate that their idiots have to go against. And they really had counted on finding somebody who couldn't tie their shoes and chew gum at the same time. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, we got a handsome, young, decorated Navy SEAL who shows up and wants to serve his state and this country, and it immediately threw him into a manic state of depression where you're not only getting sort of what every Republican Senate candidate would get, but you're getting like this heightened financial dive bomb that is attacking you, attacking your credibility, trying to put anything on your record that doesn't exist, obviously, or they wouldn't be trying in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's unprecedented, in my life to have just an assault on everything I've done.
Totally, because this is your first time running for office.
Yeah, I never ran for anything. Not
right.
City council, mayor, nothing. And, my record, I'm no saint. I don't pretend to be. I'm no hero. I'm nothing perfect. But at the end of the day...
Oh, a lot of people quibble with the hero part of that, but I can't really say it.
Joined at 18 to serve my country. Met my wife in the military. She was a Marine Corps officer, and I was a SEAL. We both fought for our country in our nation's longest war. I was wounded in combat. Was in hundreds of missions around the world. A lot of guys did a lot more than I did. But, at the end of the day, I volunteered and served when our nation needed it most. And then, after I got out, my wife and I got out of the military, we started a company in our barn, literally in our barn from scratch with other veteran founders. And with all of our savings, we've created over 400 jobs in these last several years, all over the world, primarily focused on industries that still serve. Aerial firefighting. I fly water bombers. I put out fires as they're about to burn people's homes, farms, and ranches. We're protecting America still with our business. And as soon as we became financially successful, which was a hard road, on paper I was broke many times building this company, Bridger Aerospace, and other companies that spun out. The first check we wrote was back to our community to build a neonatal intensive care unit and a pediatric wing in our hospital because we saw so many families having to leave our state to get proper care for their young children. Because in Montana, a million people spread the fourth largest state. There's not a whole lot of high-level specialty medical care. You have to go to Denver, Salt Lake, Seattle, Minnesota. And that was very important to us to immediately reinvest in our community in a number of ways. But, of course, now all that stuff makes me a terrible person.
It's amazing how quickly the world turns, right?
It is. It's crazy.
Well, the good news is for you, at least, people of Montana know you. and know what you've been up to, and they're rendering a verdict already before this campaign has really gotten into the thrust of it, where they know you, they like you, and they're going to vote for you, and it's reflected in the polls, obviously. But switching just basically back to who you are and how you got to this place. I had the pleasure of meeting your brother, both of you, outstanding individuals. I imagine that at some point you don't choose to do this in addition to your incredible record in the military or what you've done from a business if you don't have this sort of service element. Tell me about growing up. I imagine that's instilled by parents and community. And
no, it is. I mean, and that's exactly why I'm here, to be honest. I'm told, I don't have some personal desire to be a senator. I look at the retirement home that is the U.S. Senate, and I say, man, is that something I want to go do when I'm 38 years old, which is how old I am? It's like, no. But I also recognize that America's at a crossroads. I mean, it is just, there's no other way to put it. I mean, we have some very tough decisions to make in the next 5 to 10 years that will determine whether my 4 young children, ages 4, 6, 8, and 10, will inherit a bankrupt, insolvent nation that is literally being corroded from within with illegal immigration and drugs and crime, possibly embroidered in a third world war. What nation will my children inherit? And a nation that my wife and I both fought for. Her brothers served. So many of our best friends served. I had the privilege of seeing the sacrifice that so many people made for this country that so many Americans take for granted. I mean, you think about how lucky we are to have been born in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have come out of the womb anywhere. Sudan.
Right.
Palestine.
Gaza,
exactly. And you think about you came out here in this country, and what a gift that is, the percentage that you had to be born an American, 300 million Americans out of, 7 billion people on the globe. And we're so lucky, but this nation didn't happen by accident. It was forged through hundreds of years of bravery, sacrifice, and we're not perfect as a nation. We've done some wrong things, but ultimately what we created was an incredible American experiment. I've fought for it. I've been in 93 countries around the world. I've seen what the alternative is, and I refuse to just let it slip away.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here doing this. But to your point of how I got to this race, military service, business. I love my businesses, not just because I do like them. I love the mission. We're out there fighting wildfires. We're protecting people.
Yeah.
Putting ourselves in harm's way to protect other Americans, and that's the core of any duty-bound mission. But when I was asked to consider running in this race, my initial answer honestly was no.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I think you were at one of those meetings, and I'm like, no, there's no way I'm doing this. Like, this sounds like a mess. And I got home, and my wife, who's the most introverted, non-public person in the world, she homeschools our 4 young children, so she's extremely busy. We live on a farm and ranch, so she's a busy woman. Mm-hmm. And she said, Tim, I don't want to do this. I don't want you to do this for you. She's like, but I know you, and if you don't do this, and John Tester wins, and we don't take the Senate, and the runaway train that is happening in America keeps going, and you had a chance to stop it, and you didn't, you're going to be the biggest pain in my ass for the next 30 years. And
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. So she's like, you better get in and fight because I know you, and if you don't do this, you're never going to sleep again.
Yeah. So you were talking about the southern border and illegal immigration.
Yep.
I know part of your service, you spent time in South America, right?
I did, yeah.
Can you speak to some of that experience and how it sort of informs the problems we're having now at the southern border?
Yeah, I think, and not just the South America, which I'll speak to, but also, I served along 2 very treacherous, porous borders in my career: Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, Iraq. And a lot of Americans may have a passing understanding of our conflicts during the global war on terror, but most of our time on the ground in Iraq, definitely, but also even in Afghanistan, we were fighting Iran. I mean, that's just what we were doing. We were fighting malign Iranian influence, which was flooding the region, and obviously, as we see, still is flooding the region, and has been for 43 years. This isn't a new problem.
Right.
When the Shah was toppled back in 1980 or late 79, since then, these extremist regimes under the Ayatollah, have been doing terrible things as the primary state sponsor of terror all over the world. But seeing what happens when you have a border you don't control, especially when you're voluntarily not controlling, and you have a malign actor on the other side of it, the consequences are dire. I mean, dire, from weapons to smuggling to people coming across that don't wish you well. To not controlling, in many cases, economic factors. In Afghanistan, the AfPak border, one of the biggest issues was illicit timber and opium trade. Yes, they were bringing IEDs and guns in to kill us, but probably more significant was the economic seepage leaving the economy of Afghanistan, going into other neighboring countries that Afghanistan could have built a national economy around. So we start talking about our southern border. I did do a tour down in South America, focused mainly on counter narcotics. It wasn't a long tour, but went with my SEAL team down there, and we were working alongside Brazilian special forces deep in the Amazon, which was fascinating, by the way. There are jungles, and then there's the Amazon.
Yeah, right.
Big
Two
difference.
different things.
Yeah, jungle in Panama, jungle in Hawaii, Okinawa, like that. Those are jungles. Like the Amazon is a totally different beast.
There are things that have been undefined by human history
Yes.
so far.
I
in
can
there.
show you some pictures of our time there, with this chief of a tribe out next to you. I'll show you, pull it up now. But it was, so seeing, people call them cartels, and I don't like when they say that because the word cartel elicits, criminals, disorganized, bad guys. These are multinational, multi-billion-dollar
Yeah,
corporations.
exactly.
With profits that rival, the Fortune 500. I mean, these people, these organizations are incredibly powerful. They're incredibly coordinated, and they are moving at a pace and aggression with ruthlessness that we simply in our agencies don't have and could never have.
Yeah.
So we can't keep up with this threat, and they're going after us. I mean, humans right now are the highest margin product coming across our border. So I'm trying to find it here.
This is amazing that he can multitask this,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
He's doing an interview and finding us a picture all at the
There you go,
same
look at
time.
that.
Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
I can send that to you if you want to.
Yeah,
pop
no,
up
I'd
on
love to. We can pop it up on the screen
So
for
really
the
cool
viewers.
to meet this guy out in the, and it's funny because this guy, part of basically not an uncontacted tribe, but like tribe, only way to get there is hike through the jungle or take a canoe out to the middle of nowhere.
He's pretty surprised to see you.
Yes. And now this blonde guy comes out of the woods, with an assault rifle. And he cooks us up piranha for dinner. Literally catches piranha out of the tributary of the Amazon and feeds us piranha. So you're eating fish with these sharp teeth on it. It's like, man. But, it tastes good after
It's good eating?
weeks in the bush. I'm sure if I ate it right now, it would taste terrible.
At the time,
But
it was
as you know, camp food, you're like, oh, this was so good. When I get home, I'm going to make this. And then you get home and you make it. It's like, this tastes like shit. But, hungry in the woods, it tastes great. But anyway, so this guy, and the reason there's a point to the story. The reason is this guy, deep in the Amazon, leading a tribe in a village, was talking about the frustrations of being under the thumb of the drug cartels.
It's
About
incredible.
how it was corroding his village's culture, how it was harming his people, and how he didn't have 300 million people to worry about and a border wall with fence. He simply had a small village of people that were being oppressed and taken advantage of by these transnational drug cartels that were using his jungle. And you got to realize they have a very spiritual connection to the Amazon. Mm-hmm. We Americans, we like especially in Montana, we love our public lands, we love our clean water and our nature. But I mean, they have a true spiritual connection to the trees, to the earth, to the soil, and they feel like it's part of them. And when these groups come through and slash and burn and make drug labs and rape people and kill people, I mean, they truly feel it in their soul. And he was talking to us, obviously through a translator, about how frustrating and dangerous that these organizations were for him, his people, and their culture. So
I can see how you draw the parallel, too, with
Yeah.
the two experiences on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yeah. So coming now to our southern border, no other country in the world would let this happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just wouldn't. No other country in the world would allow. I mean, we don't even know what the number is. That's the scary part. 5, 7, 10, 15, 20. I mean, how many illegals have come across? Mm-hmm. And of course, what the mainstream media does, and I'm so glad that senior editor defected from NPR. I call it defect because that's like it is, like getting out of the wall, running to freedom, like saying, hey, their newsroom's 87-0 Democrat. They've been building a false narrative for 30 years. Wake up, America.
Who himself is a progressive liberal, right?
And most of us are like, really? You think this is news? We all knew this forever.
Right.
But, the point is, Americans are so afraid to speak out about this because you're painted as xenophobic or anti-immigrant.
racist. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm incredibly pro-immigrant. I've brought so many immigrants to this nation for my company, one of which was an Afghan Air Force attack pilot who, during the fall of Kabul, which is what got me involved in politics, watching
That's what I
our
was gonna ask.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about that in a bit. But watching our sacrifice be totally dishonored by Biden and the administration with no accountability coming after that. But one of those guys, the pilots were some of the most targeted individuals by the Taliban because those pilots murdered hundreds of they crushed the Taliban from the air. Haqqani Network, Al-Qaeda. We basically bought them these propeller Super Tucano planes equipped with machine guns and rockets, and they were just built to come in and just wreak havoc from the air, and they did. And the Taliban hated them for it. Mm-hmm. So when everything came crashing down, they knew we were tucking and running. They went for the commandos, the interpreters, and the pilots. Those are the top guys on the kill list, and their families, of course. And he was able to get out. He was a squadron commander, last guy off the ground, made sure his men got out. They wanted to get the planes out of country because, as you know, we left all of our stuff there. Now the Taliban's flying around in our helicopters.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a military member and you sell a pistol grip like on eBay, like you're going to jail for selling controlled military items. Yet our president's allowed to leave $4 billion of helicopters, tanks, guns, and missiles in Afghanistan.
It's astonishing.
Okay.
Astonishing.
So, another tangent, though. But my point is, so he fled the country. We brought him here to America, and now he's fighting wildfires from the air. He's serving our country again now. We were able to get him here under a special immigrant visa. Now he's serving us again as a pilot. So I'm very pro-immigrant. I mean, this nation was built on immigration. But immigration is one thing. You know, mass hordes of people flooding across our southern border is a completely different thing, and no other country in the world would let this happen. We've got to put a stop to it. We got to welcome people here the right way. You're welcome to come to America. We want you to come here, but we have every right to know who you are. Make sure you're coming here for the right reasons, making sure you can sustain yourself when you get here, and make sure that, oh, by the way, you don't have a backpack full of fentanyl that's a weapon of mass destruction.
No kidding.
And you're not literally coming with a tether of loyalty or financial servitude to the cartels. So when you get here, you're acting as an agent of those organizations.
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, we have had a ton of candidates in this room over the last 3-4 years who have been compelled to serve and run because of their military service. It sounds like that was a big piece to you. Obviously, as you explained with the Biden administration and their pullout of Kabul devastating and the loss of service members in the pursuit of that, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, or anywhere? Just what that military service sort of meant to you, maybe a vignette or two of your experiences?
Well, obviously, you know, it was... you know, the post 9/11 era for all those of us. What's shocking now is I don't feel old, but you meet.
Yeah, I know.
They weren't alive during 9/11. You know, some of these kids now like work at my company.
Had a pretty profound impact on us, and you're like, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even born yet. I'm like, really? That wasn't that long ago. But that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So you know, I have to say that in the 9/11 era, which I feel old saying it, but that's the truth. So many of these younger generation now, they weren't alive when it happened, so they don't remember that feeling of national unity.
Totally.
And the feeling of vulnerability that, you know, this greatest nation in the world, you know. This is the deadliest attack ever on American soil, deadlier than Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
So, you know, the mood after that was, of course, one of national unity and service. And in that vein, I already wanted to be in the military anyways, but, you know, that was a motivating factor to join, of course. So then, you know, serving as a SEAL team leader, you know, the SEALs are an interesting community. And from the outside in, they're very misunderstood. And obviously, you know...
Well, it's sort of Hollywooded up, right?
Totally.
I mean,
and... the truth is the vast majority of SEALs are quiet professionals that, you know, just want to serve and do their thing. But, you know, the community's been Hollywoodized to where, you know, we get made fun of by every other special operations group now, which I don't blame them. They have every right to do that. Like, oh, when are you guys writing your book? When are you doing your next movie? Oh, you know, oh, how much hair gel do you have in your ammo pouch? You know, like... You know, like you guys always have hair gel in the handy because your hair always looks great.
Nothing but handsome men there in the Navy SEALs.
Exactly right. So, rightfully so, we've had a lot of negative attention. But, you know, the truth is, you know, I had a relatively brief career and ended up getting injured and couldn't continue. And in that time, I did some amazing things, you know, from South America to mini submarine piloting operations, you know, flying mini subs under the ocean to, of course, most of my time was in the Middle East, you know, Iraq, Afghanistan a couple of times and elsewhere in the region. And, you know, when people think of SEALs, they think of, you know, the traditional capture, kill, direct action mission where, you know, night vision goggles, assault rifle, you're sneaking into a building, shooting bad guys, free falling in out of a whatever, parachute in, shoot bad guys, grab them and leave or whatever it is. And that's certainly an aspect of what the SEAL teams do. But actually the most rewarding deployment I had was actually a very conventional mission. I mean, it was called Village Stability Operations, where we were embedded with an Afghan community for months and months on end. And our job was, if you've ever seen the movie Magnificent Seven, basically that was our job. Go into this village and make them self-sustainable. Give them the ability to stand up and fight for themselves, train them to be their own commando force so that eventually we could pull out and let them defend their own territory. Because the dynamic was most of these villages were kind of like the Amazon village I mentioned, where they were getting taken advantage of by the Taliban, Haqqani network, transnational crime. You know, they'd come in, take their boys for soldiers, take their food, you know, rape their women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they were tired of being walked over by these powerful militia organizations. They wanted to be able to stand up and control their destiny. And we were giving that them that ability of self-determination. And it was a really cool experience, training these guys, being gunfights with them every day alongside them, nothing super secret squirrel, just good old-fashioned daylight gun battles, just working your way across.
Their perspective is existential.
Yes, exactly right. Fighting mud hut to mud hut, ridge line to ridge line.
Yeah.
Just straight old-fashioned gunfights, and it was a tough deployment, very rewarding one. And in that process, built a lot of relationships with the Afghans, with our partner forces, and made a lot of promises that hey, you're trying to convince these guys. They come down and join our movement to build, a free Afghan nation, which in retrospect was never an achievable goal. But, when you're 22, 23, 24, 25, you're given an order, you're given a mission, you do your best to carry it out. And that's where the source of my so much anger and resentment came from when I watched Kabul fall in 21 was, we asked so much of a generation of Americans. This was the first war where, 1% went. It wasn't like every family sent one son. There was a few of us went back over and over and over and over again. And we were asked to carry a tremendous load for this nation in the wake of the deadliest attack in this nation's history. And we did what was asked of us, and we fought hard as an all-volunteer force, especially in special operations. I'm proud to say I brought every single man under my command home alive. They didn't all come home in one piece. Some of them came home with no legs, no arms, whatever it is, but they came home. But, they sacrificed so much of the best years of their lives. The best years when, they should be ski bumming or, at the Redneck Riviera with their friends or, whatever they're doing. No, we were in the middle of the desert, taking heavies every day, killing bad guys, watching good guys get killed, and then to watch that just be totally dishonored.
Yeah.
And when you look at pictures of that pull out at the airport, I don't know what you call it, retreat, pull out, disaster, collapse, there's an important detail about those pictures that a lot of people don't understand or don't appreciate. Do you remember those pictures of the Marines at Kabul Airport?
Of course.
You remember what uniforms they were wearing off the top of your head?
Oh, off the top of my head, I don't know what I do.
They were wearing green camouflage, jungle. Yeah. They were wearing jungle uniforms. That shows you how completely unprepared we were for this operation. They flew Marines in from Amu on a helicopter wearing jungle uniforms in a country we've been in for 20 years. We've been fighting in this region for 20 years. And that shows you how unprepared. They didn't even have their desert tan uniforms on. They were wearing jungle camis because that's how unprepared we were to affect the drawdown of that airport. And that's why it was such a disaster. And 13 of those kids died. And one of them named Nicole Gee, Sergeant Nicole Gee, never met her, don't know her or her family, but she looks exactly like my wife. My wife was a Marine. And I saw the picture of her holding an infant at the airport the day she died. She was holding an infant. And she was blown up by the IEDs soon thereafter. And I literally saw that picture and saw my wife. And then you look at other pictures of these kids. That's what they are. They're 18, 19 years old. And they're on the top of that wall, and they have to look out on this crowd of people clamoring. You remember those pictures?
Oh, yeah. It's terrible.
Falling off airplanes, begging to live. They're begging for their lives. Some people handing their babies up to the wall. And these 18, 19-year-old kids, they're trained to shoot. They're trained to blow things up. They're not trained to be God. Decide who in this crowd lives and who dies. How do I look at this crowd and decide who to grab an arm and pull up over the wall and who not to?
The weight of humanity.
That's exactly right. And we put those kids in an absolutely terrible position. We didn't give them the tools, even the right color uniforms to do their job, and then 13 of them died. We hadn't had a combat casualty in Afghanistan over a year. We lost 13 that day in a complete mess, and it was a disgrace to everyone who'd ever served there. We sold those kids out, and that event motivated me to get involved. I was never political. I said, I'm getting involved. I have a personal vendetta against this administration and everything that they stand for, because so many of us answered the call and we were stabbed in the back. And that's when I started hosting events and speaking and saying, hey, whatever I can do. Ryan Zinke put my Purple Heart on me. He's my congressman. Steve Daines, our governor, Greg Gianforte, said, hey, guys, whatever I can do. Also hosting events, donating, but I'm on the boat now. It's time to kick some ass, and whatever I can do to help the party. And then, about a year and a half later, Steve Daines said, hey, I know how you can help the party, Tim.
Remember that? Listen, I can't thank you enough for running. It's for all the right reasons. Normally, we ask everybody 3 questions to get them out of here. We got to get you out of here because you got to get to a new meeting. But I'm going to put a 1 question and then get a down payment that you'll come back and give us the other 2 at some point. First question is, if you could plan your last meal on Earth. And I imagine you've thought about this. If you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
Cheeseburger.
Just straight up cheeseburger, some fries.
Our ranch, we from the time the calf hits the ground to the time it's processed, it never leaves our ownership or control. So we have a vertically integrated beef supply chain.
Real fresh burger.
And we make the best beef in the world. Little Belt Cattle Company, you can order online. It's the best beef in the world.
And a little pitch in there too.
Oh, yeah,
I like
totally.
it.
And of course the Democrats are hammering my ranch for being a fake ranch, which I don't know how a bunch of cows.
Seems like
is
it's
fake,
pretty
but,
real if you can make a burger out of it.
Exactly. And we make the best burgers around. And
That's what you go with.
Throw some fat slice of cheddar cheese on there, a little bacon, some onions, and
We throw a bourbon or a beer, cold beer, or anything in there?
beer, straight up.
Yeah, it's just a can of cold
Coors
beer.
Banquet.
There you
Heavy.
go.
Coors heavy.
I love it. All right, I'm going to hold on the other two and trust that we'll see you again very soon.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Good luck on everything out there. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to help your campaign, if they want to donate, where do they go?
So timformt.com, quick plug for the campaign for folks. People want Montana. Why do I care about Montana? At this point, we are the deciding tipping race for the Senate. I mean, we are the number one race. Manchin's out. Looks like Larry Hogan's going to take Maryland. That gets us at par pretty much. I mean, this is the seat that will determine whether we control the Senate or not. And as we've seen these last 3 years, this is critical to the future of the country.
100%.
So take an interest in this race, whether you have been to Montana or have watched Yellowstone or not. This race matters. So timformt.com and take a look and support us. Thank you.
Or also, if you just happen to think that having good people run for the right reasons is something you're interested in, I can tell you this is a place you want to go. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the time.
Wow, he's great. It's a shame I wasn't able to be there for the interview, but man, I'm so glad we got him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, there are recruits and then there are recruits. And every once in a while you stumble upon, I've done this for a decade plus. And every once in a while you stumble into a room and you hear a guy and you're like, wow, that is somebody who could do a lot of good for this country. And if they're interested in doing it, we can talk them into it. I know they're doing it for the right reason. It's that guy.
Mm-hmm. And it's Montana, for God's sake. Let's get rid of this Democrat senator in Montana.
John Tester, the only thing that he has going for him is that he's a progressive lunatic off the left-hand side of the map that doesn't look like one and doesn't talk like one. That's it. That's literally it. Mm-hmm. There is no difference between Chuck Schumer and John Tester. Never. Like, were you ever, actually concerned about how John Tester would vote on Kavanaugh or vote on, Gorsuch or vote on any of the no, of course not.
Yep.
He's a line liberal, like anything that they want. And all of a sudden now you've got a guy who served his country in a multifaceted amount of ways. He's been successful at everything that he's done. Happens to be young and a handsome gentleman to boot.
I was gonna say you can't miss that. The guy's a handsome guy and whip smart.
We could use some handsome people in Congress.
Like some handsome guys.
Yeah, it's just a little something for everybody. A little something for everybody. Anyway, I'm glad we did that interview. Wish him well again. I'm going to definitely support his cause. We did the NPR segment. Mm-hmm. So it turns out that NPR suspended. We got a scalp, boys. It's been a while. NPR suspended veteran editor, but did they take out the woman? Because I was told before we came on set that they took out the CEO. Did they not?
Oh, did they really? I didn't hear that.
Well, I heard that there was rumblings of it. There were some rumblings of it.
Well, what I have from the Wall Street Journal is NPR editor resigns after publicly criticizing coverage.
Well, that's Berliner,
calls
right?
new CEO.
Yep, that's Berliner.
Yeah.
So Berliner is the good guy in this story. He's the one, as you recall, that wrote for
Free Press.
Free Press.
Yeah, very wise.
But he's responding now to the statement of the CEO. Those are the stories today. Basically, he's responding to that CEO and saying that what she said was extremely divisive.
Correct. Yeah, she has quote faced criticism, but she's not faced.
But they
any
haven't
suspension.
actually done
No,
anything?
she's done nothing.
This is
she's
amazing.
faced no consequences. She's not suspended. She's not anything.
All right. So I withdraw the scalp. We're going to keep pushing on this. This lady is crazy.
Yeah, absolute nutshell.
This is a crazy person.
Without question.
Who is sitting on top of a publicly funded national public radio that had it within her to become totally offended by this guy pointing out a series of facts, which they don't dispute. Mm-hmm. Did they dispute any of the facts?
Not at all.
No, they just said that those facts were hurtful.
That's the way.
The hurtful facts.
So the facts were that there were 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans, that their demographics in terms of their listenership had changed incredibly over the last 10 years and had become basically a mouthpiece of the left and the Democratic Party, that they had like a spreadsheet of people tracking the race of their guests, like all the things that are the worst things. They dispute none of it. Not a bit of it.
Nope.
No, it's proprietary data, though, Holmes.
And that's why this guy got in trouble.
How the fuck do you need this to be proprietary? We've been talking about this on the show for 3 years. None of this was a surprise. It's like the people who consume their product are like liberal wine moms on the coast who are white. And they do all of this virtue signaling, talking about DEI and critical race theory and trying to attract minority viewers. And nobody's buying their bullshit.
Can you imagine, by the way, just like imagine for a second that you're sitting in this operation and the lady, we read the tweets last Tuesday. That's your boss.
That's it.
That's your boss. Where she's like parading around in a pink pea hat and like, you know, with a Biden for president sign. And she's like, no, it's important we get this story right. What the fuck are you supposed to do with that?
And it's a news organization, ostensibly.
What are you supposed to do? I mean, I'm serious. Like, what's the reaction? Like, of course, your boss, you got to go like, all right, well, I guess Russiagate's real and Biden's terrific, border's secure. What else do we need to know? I mean, that's amazing set of circumstances. I think, is there something we can do on this? Because I really heard credible rumors that she was going to face
Nope. She'll face no consequences.
serious consequences.
Is there something we can do legislatively, like defunding NPR? Is there
I know
something
Republicans
we
have
can
threatened
do?
that, but God knows they don't follow through on it. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not going to get out of the Senate, and Joe Biden's not going to sign it into law.
But don't you feel like, look, there's an appropriation season every year. And it comes up again next year. If that lady's still there and someone doesn't make it contingent upon her exit, I don't know what we're doing here.
At the very least, it'd be so cool to get her testimony before a subcommittee.
Oh,
I would love to have her come before Congress and defend what she said in that letter.
did you guys see the video of her TED Talk?
No.
Oh, my God. I mean, you want to talk about wing nut. This is a lady that's very hard to relate to. She is definitely not from Cincinnati, Ohio.
No,
Smash.
no. She makes Ilhan Omar look like a Republican.
All right, so we've got a little bit of variety, and then we're going to go to our last interview with Jesse Waters. It turns out there's been a lot of news about Caitlin Clark and the Iowa basketball team, the star. She incredible. She changed entirely individually the viewership of women's basketball, women's college basketball, where they had like 14 million people viewing Final Four games. And I think they had like, I don't know, maybe a dozen before she arrived on the scene. WNBA, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody, is well, it's not a commonly viewed product. Not a lot of attendance on that. So she's now a victim of circumstance in that she's been drafted #1 overall into the WNBA, and it turns out 3 NBA mascots make more than Caitlin Clark's entire WNBA rookie contract. What do we think about that, fellas?
I think the NBA mascots make way too much.
no. Here's the thing: it's just
I think
it's not like it's a charity. I mean, when the WNBA can sell as many jerseys, can fill as many seats in stadiums, can make as much off of TV rights as the NBA does, then the pay will be commensurate. That's the thing. Is like so.
This is the thing that I totally agree. 100% agree with you.
I didn't watch any of the like women's college basketball, whatever. But if they're putting up these numbers, then I guess try to get those people to cross over and watch WNBA. And if you can't do that, then you just don't have.
I mean, her endorsement
contract that should
contracts,
pay like one that does.
her nil stuff has got to be through the moon. This lady's not going to be hurting for money, because
So that's
she's
the thing
got
is-
everything outside of it.
She's already doing like State Farm ads. Like she's going to make a lot more money than her actual
Yeah,
contract. at
exactly.
WNBA.
So the article says that like she's making around $3.4 million in endorsements. So it's like she's fine, dude. Like at this point, like so many athletes make way more on their like endorsements than they do on the field. So good for her. She's very accomplished. She's making good money. I think there's just all this ridiculous hand wringing in the sense of like, well, why aren't women basketball players paid as much as men?
This is
It's
what
like
drives me nuts.
When they make the money, they will.
It
When they
was-
can bring it in.
All this was fed by Megan Rapinoe of the soccer team, U.S. national soccer team, when they were very competitive. Did they win a World Cup?
No.
Yeah, they did.
No, they won nothing.
No, they lost
No,
the
they
second
lost.
one, but they won
They
at
won
one
one,
point.
yeah.
They won nothing.
But in that she made a argument that actually carried the day that women should be paid the same representing the national team, and that was fine. And she won the argument on that. I don't know what the finances look like, but the larger point of all of this is you're in a market-based economy or you're not. And like if you're drawing a grand total of 17 people in the stands, don't expect to be paid like LeBron James.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that really bothers me about this, and this is kind of going to be an attack on women, I guess.
Oh,
Okay.
We know how much you hate that.
I know. I love women.
I know. Nobody loves women more than you do, Michael.
I love my wife, love my mom.
Except when you're a wrestling fan, in which case,
Okay, let's stay on topic here. Okay. So here's my criticism. Caitlin Clark puts up an incredible collegiate, performance. And she breaks the record, and she's an incredible shooter, probably the greatest shooter in women's college basketball history. I mean, she's got the records, right? It felt like what was weirdest about it to me is how many women, especially WNBA players,
Yeah.
immediately started hating on her.
Totally.
I noticed that.
Like, what happened to women supporting women?
well, we all know that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Never
it's like
has,
this
never
girl.
will.
This girl is a sensation. Crushed the ratings in college
Changed the
basketball.
game.
And
Terrible
you
to each
immediately shit all over her. Which is just like what bothers me about it is this guilt tripping that I feel like men who watch sports get when it comes to female sports. Where it's like, oh, well, you don't watch, and that's why the ratings are bad, and these people don't get paid. Why aren't you fucking watching? Why aren't the women of this country watching the WNBA? Hey, you don't watch either. That's why the ratings suck, okay? So before you start guilt-tripping the men in this country who are already watching dozens of sports and love the sports that we watch, if you'd like us to watch another sport, maybe stop guilting us. And you know what? I want you to watch yourself first. They don't. They don't.
'Cause they don't
Instead,
care.
they just want to whine and complain and say it's our fault. It's not. It's your fault. And you know what I saw? When you started shitting on Caitlin Clark because she's breaking all these records. Women are the worst to each other sometimes.
Yeah, dude.
But it's entertaining. It's entertaining to see
I
that.
just had to get that off my chest. It's been bothering me since the tournament.
Well, this lady's probably going to change the salary structure in the WNBA, and I'm guessing.
Wish
she
her all
will-
the best.
She will have absolutely no credit for it.
And my advice to women: if you see some other woman who's succeeding and like shining or whatever, go after her ass.
Yeah,
Don't let
take her
her
down.
do that. She'll probably try to take your man. Don't let her get away with it.
Don't let her do that.
She's going to take your man!
Don't let her get away with it.
Which may or may not be pertinent in the WNBA. Jesus, I can't believe we've gone off the rails a little bit. All right, last thing, a little bit of animal news. We haven't done this week. It turns out the Thai government is addressing their monkey problem.
Finally.
This is from the AP, the Associated Press. Thai wildlife officials laid out a plan on Wednesday to bring peace to a central Thai city after at least a decade of a human-monkey conflict. You won't be surprised, fellas, to find out what kind of monkey we're dealing with. here.
Macaque.
Yeah.
A macaque.
Macaque's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, for 10 years, it's been dangerous.
It's been very dangerous, and it roams this city anyway. I don't. Lopburi, do you know what I'm talking about here?
Lopburi. It's in Thailand, folks.
Yeah, there's a place in Thailand. It's a symbol of social culture and a major tourist draw, but after years of dangerous encounters with residents and visitors, several failed attempts to bring peace to the population with controls, and local people and businesses have had enough. Authorities hope to round up some 2,500 urban monkeys and place them in massive enclosures, said this dude, name unpronounceable. The Director General of the Department of National Parks, Wildlife, and Plant Conservation. They'll work with wildlife experts to find a way for a limited number of monkeys to stay at liberty within the city. I don't want humans to have to hurt monkeys, and I don't want monkeys to have to hurt humans, this individual told the news there in Bangkok. We've covered this extensively. If you go to Thailand, you're liable to be attacked by a gang of monkeys. And they're organized. And they've been throwing babies off the top of buildings and this, that, and the other. And they're finally, it looks like they're taking some action, but what they're not doing is providing a full resolution. Sounds like they're caging all of these, the banana pool not in play.
Is monkey meat any good?
Well, that's why I think
Monkey brains are served somewhere.
I think this story, fellas, I think the story should come with a warning. And next time you do takeout, I would encourage you to take your fork and just sort of sift it through your pad thai or your massaman curry and make sure there are no ears sticking out or tails. Because they don't say how they dispose of these monkeys, but we all know they're coming to take out near you.
You have
No.
They are.
No. I love Thai food.
Oh, I do too.
Well, you
But I'm going to
used
get it now before the shipment comes.
for the shipment of monkeys. Smug, any take on the monkeys?
No, I mean, we've covered it a million times. Just shoot the monkeys. I've said it a million times. Shoot them. Shoot them. That's it.
Shoot the monkeys. All right, with all of that, we're going to get to Jesse Waters. You're going to love this interview. It's in a different way than you've heard Jesse in a lot of times. He is going to give you a little bit about who he is, why he wrote the book, and everything else. We enjoyed it a lot. I want to welcome to the program a very interesting guy who I think most of you are pretty well acquainted with. You know him as a co-host of The Five and the Jesse Waters Primetime show, Fox News. And for those of us who have been Fox News viewers for a long time, we've actually watched Jesse Waters grow up in real time. And now he's an awfully big deal. He's got a book coming out. Get it together. Troubling Tales from the Liberal Fringe. Jesse Waters, welcome to the program.
Well, I may have aged, but I haven't grown up.
That's fair. That's fair. Listen, you've done it the right way, man. You've worked up every rung of the ladder to where you are right now, which is an incredibly impressive primetime Fox guy, and you have a huge following. I mean, but you've seen it all.
I started in the basement.
You did?
Working freelance, and I sat next to a girl named Candy who dotted her I with a heart.
Nothing builds character quite like that.
Right. And now I'm on the Five in prime time, and it's been a fun ride.
I mean, you were doing the Waters World back in the old O'Reilly days. I think that's when a lot of us became acquainted with your work, which was fantastic, by the way. It was a hilarious sort of new bit in primetime cable that you sort of pioneered. Did you ever, I mean, I assume that you thought your career was heading in a trajectory in a positive direction, but could you ever imagine that you've ended up where you are?
I was just trying not to get fired. And it turns out I'm very good at not being fired. And I wouldn't say I pioneered that, but thank you very much. That was a lot of fun back in the days of The Factor.
It was extremely fun. And now you got a new book. Get it together. Tell us a little bit about this. You've written books before. This one looks so entertaining. I kind of want to get both how you decided you wanted to do this and, you know, some vignettes of what you've got included.
Well, if you're not going to mention it, I will. It was #1 in the New York Times bestseller.
Just like a sellout, he's quoting the New York Times.
That was my first book. So I mean, that's the only time you want to be written about in the New York Times, when you get married, when you die, and then when your book goes #1.
There you go.
That's right. Unless you have a new recipe or something. That's pretty
right,
good.
right. Which that'll never happen.
So tell us about this book.
So, yeah, remember when I used to go in the factory and I used to interview these characters on the street, and I only got to talk to them for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And since I'm such a glutton for punishment, I said, why don't I speak to these people for hours? And so we found the fringiest folks we could find, and they told me their life stories. And I listened for hours and hours and hours, and I discovered at age 45 that listening is very important. I had never done it before.
Just a new concept.
New concept. And they poured their life stories out. And if you were a fringe activist and you were going to tell your life story to someone, would you tell it to Jesse Waters?
No, but it actually speaks to, I think, what you've uncovered.
It speaks to my humanity, exactly. And because I suffer fools, I spent the time to listen to these people, and it really struck me that none of these ideologies are based on rationality. This is all people who've had a tough upbringing. Mm-hmm. They've got issues, and they claim they don't have any issues. It's society's issues. And so we just have to change society to accommodate society to them.
Got it.
And that's what America's going through right now.
Yeah, so I read the book. They sent an advanced copy. And
you're the one that got it?
Yeah, so they sent an advanced
so
copy.
Smug gets the free copy. I get how this works.
They sent the PDF. You should have read it. So it's a great book. It was so good, I actually bought it because it's terrific, and I want to give it to other folks. The best story, I thought, was specifically about the traffic climate guy who lays down in front of cars, and he ends up being like a retired banker, which is you never expect that. That's the thing. And
turn of events.
When you read these stories, it's all personal trauma. These are all people united not by like, oh, we believe in saving the planet, or we're all progressives. It's they had some issue, unresolved issue, and this is how they act out. That completely struck me.
So now I can tell who's read the book and who hasn't read it.
Yeah, 100%.
But you're right. And so this guy in particular, he sits Indian style on the freeway and blocks traffic for hours. And I said, do you ever have people come up to you out of their cars and say, thank you, now I'm buying a Prius? And he's like, no. He hasn't changed a single person's mind, but that's not what it's about. You're right. It's about projecting these issues on the rest of the planet. And he was the most pragmatic guy. Worked in banking, mortgage broker, accountant, and he quit his job, didn't even save enough for retirement, and now blocks traffic for a living.
What? Something had to have happened in the interim.
Yeah.
And when you read the book,
listen, this is cliffhangers.
Yeah.
And it was great because even confronted with facts, because he was like, when I saw that Al Gore movie and I saw the chart, it changed everything. And Jesse's like, well, you realize they said that Al Gore in that book said that in 2013 the North Pole will be gone, and it's still here. And the guy's like, well, it's not at all based on facts.
Yeah. Well, it's not just people sitting in traffic. You got an ecosexual influencer, and the one that stuck out to me is a trans woman who is a wolf.
Identifies as a wolf.
You brought on your show in the first week of your show. Fox gives you the prime time, and they're like, "Here you go. Here's your show." And you're like, "You know what? Here's Wolf Lady."
It takes balls.
And everybody's like, "Yeah, great show."
I bet you a few Fox executives were having second thoughts after that.
No question about it.
Jesse, I'm sort of curious in all these conversations with folks, and like you said, for a longer, more extended period of time for writing this book, sort of an esoteric question, but did it give you more faith in humanity and our ability to work with other people, on the left side of the aisle who've lost their minds, or did it ruin your faith in humanity?
Well, I have faith, and I love everybody, and it turned out really enjoying these people, whether they were ecosexuals, empty the prisons, open the borders, legalize drugs and prostitution. You got to love these people because I love everyone. But to not sound cliche, and this is the most cliche thing, but because it's so fundamental, it all starts with the family. Many of these people who I interviewed either had a barstool father or no father, or an abusive father. And many of them were sexually abused, had drug and alcohol issues at a very early age. And that just absolutely obliterates you. Mm-hmm. And so what you see is these people come out of childhood completely damaged. And many of us are damaged. I've had issues, you've had issues, but we get it together. And many people have not been able to get their lives together. And you see people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s acting like juveniles, toppling statues, whatever they're doing. And it really hits home when you realize how crucial those early years are.
No question about it. So look, this is a tough thing to answer. I don't know that any of us know the answer to it, but do you think that this is something that has gotten worse, or do we just have more focus on it because we just have a lot more mediums to communicate these stories? We see a lot more things than we used to see. I mean, we've always been like this, or is this like, do we have a real mental health crisis that's just kind of starting here and may get worse?
I mean, I don't think there were wolves in the 50s. I think if you identified as a wolf in the 50s,
yeah, well, that's a healthy. It's a healthy.
Prom gets corrected.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're either going to beat it out of you, or you're going to be locked up in an insane asylum. But you're right. I think social media definitely incentivizes freaks. The freakier you are, the more you objectify yourself. They'll monetize that, and then you can blow up into a mini celebrity. And that's what you're seeing people do. And, you know, that's sad. And but it's profitable. And we put people on like that all the time. We find people on social media that you'd never be able to find. It wasn't hard to find someone who identifies as a wolf or a voodoo priestess or a black nationalist. I don't know how you'd have to do that before the internet, but it was easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Do you worry at all about, I mean, look, you've got millions of people who watch your show. It's a great show. I mean, it really is. You've done a great job with it, and Fox was wise to put you there. Do you worry at all about highlighting the freakish of the freak and bringing them to light in a way that, you know, look, there's an awful lot of impressionable people out here that have a lot of concern about the direction of our country, the direction of our world, to the point where they feel like giving up on things. Do you feel like any of this has a negative connotation going forward? Do you think that these are all stories that people need to understand, and why you wrote the book helps people contextualize insanity?
If you're asking me whether I ever second guess myself, the answer is no.
Perfect.
I'm thinking about this for the first time. I don't use these people or exploit these people. It's more of a warning shot. This is what's out there. This is what is being mainstreamed.
Yeah.
We interviewed a guy who's trying to defend pedophiles. He doesn't call them pedophiles. He calls them minor attracted persons.
Jesus.
And so, you know, 20 years ago, you never thought we'd have an issue with transgenderism, right? Or CRT or DEI. Never would even cross your mind.
Right.
And now you're having people out there mainstreaming pedophilia. So this is something that I can see with my telescope. And I'm saying, this is what's coming. This is what we have to look out for. And this is why we have to get it together. See what I just did?
Yeah, and you plugged it
There
on
it
the
is.
way
There's
in.
the title.
I mean, that's a real pro move right there.
I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago that seemed to be a common factor in each of these people, the household and their upbringing. And I recognize the fact that you dedicated this book to your own mother and father. And so you must have grown up in quite a family, Jesse. And I wonder if growing up in your house, if you thought that media was something that you wanted to get into, that writing books, that telling these stories to the public was it something you always wanted to get involved in from an early age, or did you just kind of come at it sort of later in life after college?
After college, I wanted to be an archaeologist. Because I like
for real?
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Nice.
Is that for real, or is that a bit?
No, that's true. I was really big into Indiana, and then I went to college and I was a philosophy major, and then I got to Kant, and I said, "What the hell am I doing?" I couldn't get it through my head, and then I moved over to history. I've always loved history, so I was finished up as a history major, and then tried to go into finance because all my friends were getting these finance jobs. But it turns out you need a basic grasp of arithmetic. Millions of dollars of other people's money. So I got fired like 4 times from finance gigs, and then wound up working for a political campaign, and then got spit out into Fox. And I think I was just trying to tread water. And then eventually O'Reilly said, "I'm bothering everybody inside the office." He just had to send me out into the field.
That's so
and
good.
it kind of worked. and it just happened. And you're so busy you don't even realize it, and then you're like, oh, wait a second, I have a show.
And that's another thing is like you had the man on the street bit going years before anyone started doing it, especially on social media. That became like a cheat code where a bunch of people, if they want to gain followers, they do the man on the street thing that you had years earlier. And that kind of leads into my question is, so like a lot of younger folks, the number one job that folks in high school want is to be a YouTuber, to be famous, essentially, to be on TV. And I think a lot of the times they only see folks like already at the mountaintop. Like they see like he's got the best time slot on Fox, right? Mm-hmm. They don't see the years and years it took of you going from, man on the street to building up a career to being on the 5 to now getting that time slot. What advice would you have for young folks in how to stay focused and persisting?
I wake up early. So I did for about 15 years. I woke up at 5:45, 6 o'clock, sometimes earlier, and I work out, maybe not, and then hit the train. And I like to get in before everybody else and get all the news into my brain and then put it on a silver platter for the Factor every morning. So when Bill and the executives would come in, they'd have a nice buffet of news, sound bites, guests, articles. And so I did that for years. And then I traveled for years. He sent me to 48 of the 50 states. And it was just hard work. It really is so cliche, but just hard work, dedication, discipline, putting off immediate gratification, and being nice. I'm a really nice guy. I don't think I stabbed anybody in the back or lied to get where I was. So, I just, things worked out. And I'm very grateful.
Well, you certainly put the time in. No question about that, as we said, all the way up the ladder. I'm curious about the man on the street thing. What was aired is what we saw. Did you ever get, fully attacked? Were you ever, in fear for your physical safety?
So O'Reilly said, if anybody ever tries to punch me in the face, lean into it. Because he said you'll be famous like Geraldo, and then you can sue the guy for $100,000.
Which is a nice little salary supplement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tremendous career advice right there.
But I was never physically assaulted, although I probably would have been much more famous if I was. But I'm tall and can hold my own, so no one really tried anything.
Yeah, he's got Philly runs pretty deep in this guy, so I think that probably helped out. But I've always wondered that, right? Because I remember watching it and thinking
and you're essentially talking to just the crazy people.
You find the craziest person and be like, hey, I'm going to ask you a question you can't answer, and I assumed that somebody was going to take that the wrong way, but it sounds like you managed to work your way through that.
I'm very good at diffusing conflict. It's my gift. I should have been a diplomat.
I love that. So, Jesse, we ask everyone that comes on the show 3 questions. And everybody pays attention to these things. I'm actually really interested. I think I probably know the answer to number 1 already, given his background, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
I'm a steak guy, so I'm going to go with steak, scalloped potatoes with asparagus with an oyster appetizer.
An oyster appetizer. Do we tip-top that with a red wine or a bourbon or something?
I've been into bourbon, and now I'm moving more into a white wine phase.
Oh, really? That's very sophisticated.
And I say that with masculinity that it's never been questioned. I'm comfortable sharing that with you.
An important addendum. All right, so second question. Look, you've had an incredibly successful career. You are on top of the mountain. And with the benefit of retrospect, if you look back on all of the time and hard work that you've spent doing this, if you never did this at all, but you still retain all of the knowledge about everything that you currently have in your head, and you have a blue sky to fill that time with whatever it is that you want to do, what would that be? I love that.
I'd spend more time traveling the world.
Okay.
I went to the Netherlands to study abroad when I was in college.
How'd that work? Were you studying abroad or studying abroad?
So I'd like to maybe do Asia, Africa. I'd do it all. I was only able to go to Europe, never been to South America, I've just done the Caribbean and Europe, but I'd like to travel more. I was big into European imperialism when I was a history major, and I love that time period when the civilizations came together for the first time. And wherever I could go to explore that nexus, Istanbul, Cairo, I'd love to explore that.
This isn't one of the questions, but it's a piggyback on what Ashbrook asked you earlier. I mean, clearly your appreciation for history, geographical differences between people, whatever, that had to have been implanted at some point in a young age. I mean, your folks clearly had to impart a healthy level of curiosity to make a Jesse Waters out of all of that.
My parents are both liberals. They voted for Mondale, Dukakis, Gore, Kerry. They actually think Trump is going to be a dictator, not just on day one. and so, but they raised me. I went to Quaker schools. They're both in education, but they raised me to just respect everybody. And to be a well-mannered, polite, respectful young man who was curious about other people and different things. And that's not a liberal doctrine. That's not a conservative doctrine. That's just a human doctrine. So I dedicated this book to them. Oh, what do you know? Here's a copy. I dedicated this book to them, get it together for that very reason, because they raised me well.
It's a good, I mean, look, I think the takeaway from a lot of your book and what you just said is the same throughout, right? A healthy family structure certainly helps provide a huge head start on success. All right, so here's the third question. Our view is that almost every successful person in the world is motivated by one of two things. It's either the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And it's not that anybody likes to lose. And it's not that anybody doesn't like to win. It's what motivates them to keep pushing, right? And we use a sports analogy with this, which I know that you appreciate. Michael Jordan is like the ultimate agony of defeat guy, right? He's got rings, every single title he won, he appreciates for like 15 minutes. But if you insult him on the way to the court, he carries it around like a backpack for the rest of his life, right? It's what he uses as motivation to keep working harder. And like my view of the thrill of victory person is like a Phil Mickelson. It's like everybody says you lay up on this shot. It's 240 over water. And he's like, yeah, but I hit it 2-iron like 6 times. I know I can make that shot. And so I'm going to swing it. That's the two kind of poles of how we view really successful people. If you were to think about that in the context of your own life, where do you think you find yourself?
I'm neither. I'm a grinder. And my high school lacrosse coach identified me as a grinder. He said, there's stars on this team, and then there's grinders. And Jesse, you're not a star, you're a grinder. He said, I like to hit people. I like to get ground balls. I like to clear the ball. But, I'm not going to put up a hat trick. And that's not what motivates me. I don't obsess over the ratings. I don't carry with me all of the slings and arrows that people have thrown my way over the course. That's not what motivates me. What motivates me is self-improvement. I'm a big self-help guy. I read all the self-help
Do
books.
You really? That is the...
Drink water, get sun, go for a run, read a book, prepare for the show, write, spend time with my family. I try to make the most out of every moment, because life is really the accumulation of all the decisions you've ever made. Where we all find ourselves are the results of every single decision we've ever made in our life. And every moment is a decision. This moment right now, I decided to do this. You decided to book me. Then I'm going to decide what I'm going to do in my car on the way in. I'm going to read, I'm going to write, I'm going to do this. So every moment is an opportunity, and I try to make the most out of these opportunities and really seize the moment. And I like being in the moment. That's the grind for me.
It's really well said. Yeah, really well said. Well, we hope that the decision to come on here was a good one. You
guys are phenomenal. I've done all of these interviews for the last 3 weeks. I love this show.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
and you're
you.
doing excellent work, the Lord's work. And I think you can tell, the audience can tell just based on this conversation, there is a bunch of layers to Jesse Waters that not everybody knows until you talk to him a little bit more than what you get on cable and just his show. So we appreciate you doing that. The book is Get It Together,
Terrific
Troubling
book.
Tales from the Liberal Fringe. You got to go buy it. I assume you can get it anywhere.
Yes, I'm not as superficial as I appear on television. Thank you.
The kind of guy the boys of the program would like to hang out with, which is the best endorsement that we've got here on the program. So thank you for joining us. Appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
I like how you say program.
It's affected, but it's ours.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Jesse.
So, look, this is a first-class guy. We have talked about this a lot when you have a guest on the program, and we have two today, where I put in that same category of people who you immediately are like, I can hang out with that guy.
Yeah. Also layers. I mean, the guy's an onion.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you don't, and it doesn't come across like if you just watch Fox Primetime.
How could it? Right?
Yeah.
I guess that's really my point, and I assume you were going to say the same thing. But like a guy like that, who's extremely talented on television, like you can't fully capture that like in sound bites and like on the television. And that's why like
because he's doing a job, he's not giving you his biography.
Right. And that's why like the books that he wrote and this new one are so important, because you get to see more of the guy, and like shows like ours are valuable for guys like him because he can be more himself in long form. I was surprised with some of his answers, and having seen him on television, I wouldn't have expected some of that.
Yeah,
And
totally.
It was incredible.
Also, he has done what very few are able to do, which is to get comfortably smug to read.
Dude, Smug read a book.
I mean, I think that's the thing, is it speaks to it, because like I initially thought this is going to be like a funny book, and it is. It's funny. But to me, to come up with the approach of I'm going to actually talk to these, left-wing loonies and just let them speak, and the takeaway being that these are essentially just like damaged people, and this is an extension of their like broken past.
Yeah.
That's like a huge revelation.
He did King of the Hill, but he did it in an entire book form.
Yeah,
He did.
It's a great book.
And it
really good
and
book.
it lays bare the whole notion that we just have different views of the world.
Totally, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
we may have different views, but how you arrive at the view is also sort of important.
It's gonna be a bestseller, but shit, he probably deserves the Pulitzer. Like it was an eye-opening book. Really good one.
A Pulitzer
Yeah.
for Waters. You hear that, Jesse? Jeez.
Wow.
Gonna get a raise after that, I can
Yeah.
tell you. Not that he needs one. He's doing just fine over at Fox. We really appreciate him coming in, and appreciate Tim Sheehy for his time. Fellas, it's another big week. I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Future Senator Sheehy and Jesse Waters. And thank you to the Minions. Remember, subscribe on YouTube if you have not yet. It's more fun in video. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.